That day was our anniversary. However, my husband Topher didn't come home until morning, citing work commitments. Spending our anniversary alone was a first for me, cutting up a cold cake I had prepared while watching a lively variety show. I wondered if he might be cheating. As I ate the cake, it tasted like sand. If he was really cheating, I wasn't sure if I felt sad or angry. After supporting each other for so long and planning to start a new life just the two of us, betrayal at this juncture made me question what feelings I should harbor. All I could definitely think was, what on earth is Topher thinking at his age? If he's cheating, I'll make sure he regrets it, I resolved, staring at the partially eaten cake on a quiet night. While searching for something that could be definitive proof of his infidelity in Topher's room, I found some papers sticking out from a bookshelf. Casually pulling a few out, I discovered something unexpected. Divorce papers, and this is. What I found were divorce papers with only Topher's name filled in and a marriage license. In a moment, I almost tore up those 2 sheets of paper, but I quickly calmed down. I will never forgive him. I'll make sure he deeply regrets what he's done. My name is Eleanor. 23 years ago, when I gave birth to our son, I was still young and planned to go back to work after a certain period of childcare, entrusting our son to a daycare. However, Topher was against me resuming work. In Topher's view, there was a strong belief that men should work outside while women should take care of the home. Though it wouldn't be true to say I had no aspirations of being a housewife, I accepted his suggestion and quit my job. Our son's name is Chet. He grew into a large, kind young man, living up to his robust name, graduating from the college of his choice and securing a job, which was a relief to me. With Chet moving out to live on his own upon getting a job, our home felt suddenly empty yet somehow pleasing, stirring complex emotions. Now, I sit where Chet used to, reading a book. I read detective novels that I couldn't focus on during busier times, sinking deeply into the sofa with my eyes closed after getting into the story. The curtains, left open, flutter in the soft breeze, carrying the faint scent of osmanthus. Ah, it's that time of year again. I remember the scent from when Topher and I got married. It's the start of autumn. I find myself smiling at no one in particular in the quiet living room. One holiday, I was cleaning the entrance early in the morning. The air was clear and a bit cold, and since I was dressed for summer, I felt chilled to the bone. Returning inside, I saw Topher about to close the bathroom door in his pajamas. Is bread okay for breakfast? I asked quickly. Uh-huh. To which he replied ambiguously. I placed the bread on the cutting board, topped it with sliced ham and cheese, and threw it into the toaster. As I turned on the stove under the kettle, Topher's mobile phone, left on the dining table, started to vibrate without warning. Buzz, 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 it vibrated persistently, calling for its owner. I, not particularly concerned, took the toast with a nice level of browning out of the toaster, placed it on a plate, and set the table. The mobile phone was still going. The screen was face down, not that I wanted to look, but I thought it might be a call from work, though I only pondered this briefly before the ringing stopped. At the same time, Topher came back from the bathroom and began washing his hands in the kitchen, prompting me to chide him immediately. Hey, don't wash your hands in the kitchen sink. Huh? Oh, right? What? Topher, still half asleep, wiped his hands on his pajama sleeves after washing and took his seat. I handed him the newspaper I'd taken from the post while cleaning the entrance. With a slight smile. Thank you, Topher said. I always liked these small expressions of gratitude from him. Then I took my seat and sipped the hot coffee I'd poured into my cup. By the way, your mobile phone was ringing off the hook earlier. Who was it from? Topher quickly closed the newspaper he was holding open and glanced at his mobile phone, which was face down on the table. Then, with a panicked expression, he said to me, Hey! You didn't look at my phone, did you? No, I didn't, but who is it from? I'm in the middle of an important work exchange. There are some details I wouldn't want outsiders to know about. Saying that, Topher looked a bit upset, quickly stuffed his toast in his mouth, and without really reading the newspaper, retreated to his room. Wondering what was going on, I placed the dishes in the sink, and then my mobile phone rang. I picked up my constantly charging mobile phone from the corner of the kitchen, carefully unplugged it, and put it to my ear. The call was from my son, Chet. "Is everything okay?" I asked, and Chet, "Just checking if you're doing all right," sounded a bit embarrassed, even over the phone. Thinking to myself, shouldn't he be calling his girlfriend instead of his mom on a holiday morning? I almost asked, but then, puzzled by Topher's earlier behavior, I shared the story with Chet as it happened. "That sounds like Dad might be cheating," Chet joked, and I couldn't help but laugh. After that, the conversation turned to Chet struggling with cooking for himself, and I promised to text him my special recipe later before hanging up. I started typing the minestrone recipe on my mobile phone, a recipe that both Topher and Chet loved. Use fresh tomatoes, not canned. The soup, which uses just a bit of consommé but primarily relies on the flavor of the vegetables, was praised by Topher as delicious when I first made it at the start of our marriage. While I was frantically typing on my unfamiliar mobile phone, Topher left without a word, and I heard the entrance door close. The sound of a car engine starting and driving away gave me a strange feeling of unease. Through the gap in the curtains, I just watched the tail lights of Topher's car. Then another day. That day was our anniversary. However, Topher didn't come home until morning, saying he was busy with work. Spending our anniversary alone was a first for me, cutting up a cold cake I had prepared while watching a lively variety show. I wondered if he might be cheating. The cake I ate tasted like sand. If he really was cheating, I wasn't sure whether to be sad or angry. After supporting each other for so long, and just as we were planning to start a new life just the two of us, such betrayal made me wonder what feelings I should have. All I knew for sure was, what on earth was Topher thinking at his age? If he's cheating, I'll make sure he regrets it, I resolved, staring at the half-eaten cake on a quiet night. My plan began that day. I would sneak a look at Topher's mobile phone while he was in the shower and check WhatsApp. The screen lock was on, but after seeing Topher unlock the pattern lock a few times, I figured out it was a simple spiral pattern within a few days. Unaware, Topher carelessly left his phone with lax security all over the room, giving me opportunities over several days to sneak peeks. I searched for evidence of cheating. Carefully proceeding without arousing Topher's suspicion, I found conversations that seemed to imply infidelity and felt a tightening in my chest, along with a quiet rising anger, which I tried hard not to show. I served dinner as if nothing was amiss. Tonight's dish was minestrone, a favorite of both Topher and me. Usually, I use fresh tomatoes, but tonight, I used canned tomatoes on sale from abroad and added more consommé than usual. Huh? The minestrone tastes better than usual. Really? That's good to hear. I smiled. Years ago, when Topher was warned by a doctor to watch his salt intake, I took it seriously and subtly reduced the salt in our meals. But tonight, I loaded the dish with as much artificial seasoning and salt as possible, maximizing the flavor. During the meal, Topher kept opening his mobile phone and staring at the screen. Despite my cold gaze as I brought soup to my mouth, Topher seemed oblivious. "You seem very busy lately. I'm worried about your health." "Well, there's work, but also socializing with colleagues. I've been going out for drinks with clients more often recently." "Is that so?" "Honestly, there are days I don't feel like going, but it's part of the job. I guess I've been feeling a bit more relaxed since Chet started living on his own." Feeling a bit more relaxed. I mulled over in my head. Is it normal to become unfaithful because you feel relaxed after your child becomes independent? Holding back my desire to retort, I said something I didn't truly feel. That must be hard. After the meal, I pretended to be engrossed in a variety show, not particularly interesting, while repeating the life of sneaking peeks at Topher's mobile phone as soon as he entered the shower. By checking the interactions on his mobile phone little by little every day, I discovered he was involved with 2 women and decided to note down their profiles in a notebook while Topher was at work. Birdsong could be heard in the distance. On a pleasant Wednesday under the clear blue sky, I pondered, clicking my pen repeatedly. One of Topher's affairs, a woman named Jocelyn, appears to be a receptionist at a business client's company. Among the communications were indeed work-related matters, and judging by the frequency of messages from Topher, she seemed to be a primary affair. Jocelyn is 27 years old. Considering Topher is 51, I wondered if he was genuinely taken seriously by her, almost finding it pitiful. Yet, the thought of Topher, who could be extending his nose to a woman young enough to be his daughter, brought a chill of disgust. The other woman, Anne, whom he had apparently met recently after going out for drinks with colleagues. She had been divorced in the past and was contacting Topher quite frequently, bombarding him with messages and calls without waiting for replies, which even I found to be a bit too much. Topher seemed to want to end things with Anne but was having trouble doing so, as evident from their exchanges. While searching for something that could serve as definitive proof of his infidelity in Topher's room, I found some documents sticking out from a bookshelf. Casually pulling a few out, I discovered something unexpected. Divorce papers, and this is. What I found were divorce papers with only Topher's name filled in and a marriage license. I almost tore up those 2 pieces of paper in a moment, but I quickly calmed myself. Perhaps Topher wants to marry Jocelyn, the younger woman. But the situation with Anne, who has a history of divorce, seems to be complicating things, and Topher himself must be pondering what to do. The selfish thought of him dragging both me and his affairs through the mud had me completely infuriated. I will never forgive him. I'll make sure he deeply regrets what he's done. The following Sunday, I sat at a cafe in front of the station, sipping black iced coffee, squinting as if to check the pounding of my heart. As the cafe's automatic door opened, a strong perfume scent spread inside, and a woman in a purple dress with long blonde hair stood before me, giving a slight bow before sitting down. Nice to meet you. I'm Anne. Thank you for coming. I was a bit surprised, but it's okay. Yes. And glanced at the menu briefly before ordering an iced coffee from a passing waiter. She wiped her hands nervously and rubbed them on her lap a few times, appearing unsettled. Despite Anne's flashy appearance, she seemed timid and restless. Did you know Topher was married? Yes, well. He said things weren't going well with his wife. Was I deceived, after all? You see, Anne, I'm considering divorcing Topher. I continued gently, careful not to alarm Anne. That my marriage to Topher was nearly broken, and that the divorce could be filed at the court immediately. I took out the divorce papers with Topher's name on them from my bag and laid them in front of Anne. Anne's eyes widened as she scrutinized the document before staring intently at me. I have no lingering feelings for Topher, but I can't forgive the cheating. You, as a woman, can't forgive that either, can you? That's true, I understand, yes. So, I want proof that you were seriously involved with Topher. After I file this divorce application, I want you to submit a marriage license with Topher. And, with her mouth agape in shock, remained silent for a while. Look, this handwriting is Topher's, isn't it? He must have been serious about marrying you to prepare something like this. After covering her mouth with both hands, and declared in a slightly loud voice, "Thank you. I will be happy ever after." And my smile became forced, feeling somewhat unnerved. Topher really got caught up with a strange woman. And, looking pleased, hugged the marriage license and said she would submit it after getting a relative to witness it, then left. Just before leaving, and asked me with a serious face, "Could you and your son be witnesses for the marriage license?" At that moment, my forced smile faded, but I gently declined, and she smirked. "Yes, I understand that." After filing for divorce, I called Chet. I reported how Topher had been cheating, that I had filed for divorce, and even helped his reluctant affair partner to submit a marriage license. Hearing this, Chet's loud laughter came through the phone. Listening to his laughter, the small lump of guilt in my heart seemed to dissolve. "Mom, you do some crazy things. But I think it's good. I won't see Dad anymore. I didn't think he was that kind of person." "Thank you. I felt relieved hearing your voice. Is there anything I can do?" "I'll help if there's anything." I declined his offer, thanked Chet, and then decided to take a bus back to my parents' home. Arriving home after transferring buses, my elderly parents welcomed me with surprised faces. My father, who had retired, had taken up vegetable gardening near our home, and it seemed to have expanded significantly without my knowledge, with a large amount of vegetables stacked in containers like those used by wholesalers at the entrance. As we settled down with coffee after work, I shared the entire story and began discussing the future. At first, my parents were incredulous at the news of Topher's affair, but eventually, they accepted the situation and suggested that I move back home. My father, with a calm expression, said, "Chet is no longer a child. You should do as you like." And their approval of me living at home was immensely comforting. A few days later, Topher, who had been away on a supposed business trip, which I had verified was false, likely staying with the younger woman, Jocelyn, contacted me. Topher, finding the house empty and everything untouched, called me, bewildered. "The house is a mess, laundry's still hanging. What's going on?" "Oh, I heard you were on leave from work, so I thought maybe you were out cheating." "What?" "Hey, what are you talking about?" I bluntly revealed that I knew everything about his actions. From the other side of the phone, I could sense Topher's confusion. Noticing I was on the phone with Topher, my mother stopped cooking and looked worried, but I reassured her with a smile, though she frowned in concern. "Anyway, yeah. Come home once. We need to talk. I don't understand this sudden talk of divorce." Indeed, that would make sense. No matter what the circumstance, when something unexpected unfolds at an unexpectedly rapid pace, anyone would feel confused, shaken, and experience a suffocating sensation. Had you not betrayed me, I would have lived without ever knowing such feelings. Every year, as we endured the sweltering summer and began to feel a hint of coolness, signaling perhaps the arrival of cooler weather, the scent of osmanthus would remind me of our wedding anniversary with Topher. At the start of autumn, we began our life together. But this year, it feels like the season of endings, I thought romantically to myself. Anyway, come home. We'll talk after that. It'll be okay. Not understanding what he meant by "it'll be okay," I couldn't help but give a wry smile. Without hesitation, I set about making preparations to contact Topher's two affairs. Then, the following Sunday, an odd scene unfolded with me, Topher, and Jocelyn, four of us sitting around a table. I had lured in home under the pretext of wanting to discuss the division of assets upon my divorce from Topher. As for the young Jocelyn, I had never contacted her before, so I used a number extracted from Topher's mobile phone to directly. "I'm Topher's wife. There's something I need to discuss with you. Please come to our house. Tell her." And, sitting next to Jocelyn, seemed bothered by her presence. "Nice to meet you," and timidly said. Jocelyn, understanding the reason for her presence, remained silent, looking down. The youngest among us, Jocelyn, was gripping the thin lace she was wearing, crossing her arms. Despite it being a pleasantly warm autumn day, Jocelyn rubbed her arms over her wrap several times. I'll just say it directly. Jocelyn, and you both were having an affair with my husband, weren't you? Anne, with her heavily made-up eyes widened, looked at Jocelyn next to her. Topher had turned pale, like a fish out of water, and kept his head down, staring at the wood grain of the table. In short, you were deceived into thinking let's get remarried someday after the divorce. Both of you, at the same time. Anne and Jocelyn were unaware of each other's existence as affairs until they were brought here. Jocelyn probably came here ready to demand a divorce from me, but was stunned to learn not only of another affair but that Topher had already submitted a marriage license with Anne. What? You mean he's already divorced his wife and remarried someone else? Wait a minute. He was cheating with another girl too? Hold on. Don't all speak at once. My head's about to explode. Let's calm down for a moment. Eleanor, could you get everyone something to drink or something? What? I'm no longer your wife. You serve the drinks. Stunned by my words, Topher clutched his chest, holding his head in agony. Then, after a few seconds of silence, he bowed deeply and cried, "I'm sorry," offering a profound apology. What meaning does such a cheap apology hold? "I'm sorry. Please forgive me." I've kind of lost interest now. But I'll be expecting a substantial amount of compensation from you. What? But that... I firmly informed them that I would also be seeking compensation from both and Jocelyn, smiling. Of course, I had already consulted a lawyer, and if they intended to claim compensation from Topher, that was their business, not mine, I added. Afterward, Jocelyn coldly berated him, and looked around uncertainty, standing up and sitting down repeatedly, unable to settle. So the story about your wife cheating and being on the brink of divorce was also a lie. No, that's not. To think I'd waste such boring moments with such a dull man. Jocelyn cradled her head, letting out a small sigh in self-mockery. Watching them from a distance, I thought, how disgraceful this all is. There's still something I need to do. Demanding compensation from Topher and his affairs properly seems necessary for me to enjoy my future life. Jocelyn, having seemingly lost interest, complied readily with the claim for compensation through a lawyer. However, true to her word, Jocelyn also demanded compensation from Topher, who until the end hoped I would reduce the claim against him, but I demanded payment without mercy. At Anne's suggestion, Topher decided to sell his house and use the proceeds to pay the compensation. This allowed Topher to somehow prepare the compensation money, but he lost his place to live and ended up moving into Anne's parents' home. Though the marriage license with Anne was issued without his consent, if he were to renounce even this marriage license, he would be liable to pay compensation to Anne as well, and it seemed Topher no longer had the financial leeway for that. I later heard from relatives that Topher, after moving into Anne's parents' home, was subjected to considerable restrictions. Since their remarriage began with an affair, and was apparently worried that Topher might cheat again, making daily calls to his workplace to confirm his attendance and insisting he come straight home after work. Moreover, the family home was in a quite rural area with few streetlights on the way from the station, and no convenience stores nearby. On his days off, he was made to repair the old family home and was essentially at the beck and call of his elderly in-laws, losing all his freedom. What made me pity him was that Topher was not allowed to have a mobile phone and was only given the bare minimum of pocket money. Jocelyn and I completely cut ties with Topher and returned to our own lives. Since Jocelyn was associated with Topher's business dealings, the affair became a rumor within the company. And it seems Topher felt marginalized at work, I heard from someone. But that no longer mattered to me. I was now living a relaxed life helping with my parents' farming. Having helped with my father's hobby of gardening before getting married, I had some agricultural knowledge, and we produced enough to supply to local supermarkets, making my days fulfilling. Occasionally, Chet would come to visit home. We would have dinner together, and I thought it would be nice to make minestrone again. The tomatoes harvested by my parents at the end of summer were starting to age, so I used a large amount to make a big pot of soup. "My, you're making quite a fashionable dish," my mother said with interest as she watched me cook, but I assured her with a smile that she would like it. Seeing everyone enjoy the meal I prepared, I couldn't help but smile with joy. The soup, low in salt but rich in vegetable flavors, might not have been the most stimulating taste, but it felt like it gently merged into our bodies.